Hi, second graders, Miss Gruby here. Today we're going to read The Dog That Dug for Dinosaurs, and when we are done, we're going to answer questions about what we read. Remember, our vocab words for the week are exact, discovered, remove, growled, amazed, explained, guard, and souvenirs. The genre of this story is biography. A biography tells about events in a person's life. If you haven't watched it yet, be sure to go to our Padlet and watch the video about Mary Anning to learn more about her life. Make sure to follow along in your Journeys book as well. A long, long time ago, there was a little dog named Trey. He was black and white all over. He had friendly brown eyes and a very wiggly tail. Trey lived in England. Trey was a real dog, and this is an honestly true story about him. Trey loved two things most in the whole world. First, he loved Mary Anning. She was 12 years old and lived with her family in a small cottage near the beach in Lyme Regis. Secondly, Trey loved going with Mary to dig for fossils. So what are fossils anyway? They are the remains of animals and plants that died a long time ago. When a leaf or bone gets pressed between layers of sea mud, it leaves an imprint. After many, many years, the mud hardens to rock. Trey and Mary knew that they would find the very best fossils high up on the cliffs around the beach. They climbed up there every day. Trey sniffed the rocks. He pawed the dirt. Mary used a small hammer and chisel. With these tools, Mary carefully cut fossils out of the cliff, just as her father had shown her. Trey watched as she placed the fossils in her basket. Most of them looked like seashells. Mary and Trey sold them as souvenirs to the tourists that came by stagecoach to swim at the beach near their home. One day, Trey and Mary discovered some very large bones sticking out of the rocks. They were huge. Trey growled and tried to dig the bones out. Mary used her hands to brush away the loose dirt. "Trey, we've discovered a monster," she declared. The bones were much too big for Trey and Mary to remove by themselves. "I'll go for help," Mary said. "You stay here, Trey." Trey barked loudly and sat down in front of the bones. He was a very good guard dog. Mary ran all the way back to town and asked some grown-ups to help her. "Trey and I have found something really special in the cliff," she told them. "Just wait and see." When the men saw the giant rib bones in the side of the cliff, they were amazed. "What a beast!" they cried. "Look at those sharp teeth." "Is it a crocodile?" one man asked. "Or a stubby whale?" "We don't know what it is," Mary admitted. "But we know it's something special, don't we, Trey?" Trey yipped and wagged his tail. A rich man who lived nearby heard about the sea monster. He hurried to see it for himself. "I'll buy it," he cried. "I will give it to the British Museum in London." "Do you know what it is?" Mary asked. "It's called an ichthyosaur," the man told her. "That means fish lizard," he explained. "It's like a dinosaur with fins." The amazing news spread about the gigantic fish lizard and the dog and the little girl who had found it. Soon many strangers came to Lyme Regis where Mary and Trey lived. They all wanted to hunt for fossils too. The men wore tall top hats. The women wore frilly bonnets. They carried pretty umbrellas called parasols. Mary shook her head and smiled. She rubbed Trey's soft ears. They watched the strangers together. "They don't have the right tools," Mary whispered. "They are wearing the wrong kinds of shoes. Aren't they silly, Trey?" Trey yipped and chased his tail. Curious scientists visited Lyme Regis too. One man came from the university in Oxford. His name was William Buckland. He went to the old carpenter's shop where Mary and Trey sold their fossils. "Can you show me where you found your ichthyosaur, young lady?" he asked politely. "Do you think you could find the exact spot again?" "Trey can find it," Mary boasted. Together, Mary and Mr. Buckland followed the little dog across the beach and up to the cliffs. Trey sniffed the rocks. He pawed the dirt. Suddenly he yipped. Then he sat down. Mary pointed. It was the exact place where she had discovered the strange fish lizard. "What an intelligent dog," Mr. Buckland declared. Trey wagged his tail. Trey and Mary continued to dig for fossils. They were very careful. Mary watched for falling rocks like her dad told her. Trey looked out for storms and high tides. Then one day they discovered another giant creature. "Look, Trey," Mary cried. "Is it a sea dragon?" Trey sniffed the skeleton and snapped at it with his teeth. The creature had a long, long neck. Its backbone was like a humped turtle shell. Instead of feet and legs, it had 4 large paddles. But it wasn't a sea dragon. Mr. Buckland called it a plesiosaur. One day, Trey and Mary found a fossil that no one in England had ever found before. This one had huge bony wings like a bat and a long, sharp jaw. Trey growled. "It looked like a gigantic flying lizard," Mary declared. The scientists thought so too, and that's why they named it a pterodactyl. That means lizard with wings. Over the years, Trey, Mary, and Mr. Buckland became good friends. They showed him where to find the best fossils in Lyme Regis. Mr. Buckland brought books about dinosaurs for Mary. He brought beef bones for Trey. Mary, with Trey on her lap, studied her books every day. When Trey's whiskers turned gray and Mary was all grown up, they still collected fossils and sold them in the old carpenter's shop. There were boxes and baskets filled with fossils on the floor and on the shelves. Some of the fossil creatures were so big they couldn't fit through the door. Sometimes children and tourists stopped in to buy fossils of ancient sand dollars or tiny fish and curly shells. Many scientists came to the shop to buy fossils too. They brought carts and wagons to haul away the really large ones. Trey and Mary Anning became very famous. Today, if you go to the National History Museum in London, you can see the large fossils they discovered together. You can also see a famous painting of Mary holding her fossil basket and Trey, the dog that dug for dinosaurs. Now that we're done reading the story, you can download this on Padlet to answer questions about what we read. Remember that your answers should have part of the question in them, like this. Why do many of the fossils that Mary and Trey found look like seashells? We can use some of those words from the question in our answer. I'm going to use these words. Many of the fossils that Mary and Trey found look like seashells because... To find your answer, reread the story and stop at page 388. Question 2 says, what is Mary's opinion of the bones she and Trey find in the cliff? What fact does she find out about the bones? Again, we're going to use part of the question in our answer. It would look like this. Mary's opinion of the bones she and Trey found in the cliff is this. A fact she found out about the bones is this. Again, reread the story and stop at page 391 to find your answer. The third question says, what do Mary and Trey do to stay safe when they look for fossils? Mary and Trey stay safe when they look for fossils by doing something. Again, reread and stop at page 396. Question 4 says, why did Mr. Buckland bring Mary books about dinosaurs? To restate that question, we would say, Mr. Buckland brings Mary books about dinosaurs because, and then we would put our answer. You can find this if you reread and stop at page 399. Question 5 says, why did the authors write this selection? Remember, when we think about author's purpose, our three options are P, I, or E. P stands for persuade, which means the author is trying to talk you into doing something or make you believe something that they believe. I stands for inform, which means the author is teaching you facts about a real topic. And E stands for entertain, which means the author is telling you a fun, made-up story using characters, setting, a problem, and a solution. To answer this question, we would say the authors wrote this selection, which is just another word for story or book. So the authors, oops, I left out a letter. The authors wrote this selection to either persuade me, entertain me, persuade me, inform me, or entertain me. All right, that's all for today. Bye, second grade.